Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look at the DRF race of the day for Saturday, September the 21st. Let's throw up the field for race number 13 at Parx. It is the signature race of the Parx season, the Grade 1 $1 million Pennsylvania Derby. 3-year-olds going 1 1/8 miles. It is a full and competitive field. Remember to access your free Formulator Pass performances on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. Dragoon Guard is the now horse in this race, the 9-5 morning line favorite, but we've got the Preakness winner, the number 2 Seize the Gray, trying to get back to his winning form for Wayne Lukas.
Feels like class relief here for Seize the Gray. Dan hasn't run particularly well in his 2 starts since he upset the Preakness there, but this is a way better spot for him. As far as Dragoon Guard goes, I mean, hard to knock what he's done so far on the racetrack. I wonder what happens if he's denied the lead this time, though, because he likes to be forward, and there's plenty of speed to his inside.
It's a perfect segue, Mike, for our Timeform US pace projector. Everyone recalls how Seize the Gray wired the field in the Preakness, and breaking from post position 2, he figures to be outright on the lead. Dragoon Guard is fast. He's going to be close. You have a stretch-out sprinter in Lonesome Boy. Not sure he's fast enough. The 9, Who's the King, not sure he's classy enough to run with these horses. To me, the key to the pace is the 8, Unmatched Wisdom, who just showed no early speed in the Travers last time out, despite wiring them in the Curlin. He's pretty quick as well.
I agree. I thought that there were several horses, though, Dan, who could be part of this pace. I mean, as far as the pace projector is concerned, you know, even a horse like the 6, Just Step on It, they sort of have a mid-pack on the rail, but I don't see how this horse isn't going forward in this race. It seems like his preferred style is to be up close early, and he just exits perhaps the best race of his life, where they put him on the lead, contesting the pace in the Smarty Jones.
If you believe the pace is hot, you might want to keep an eye on the 5, Protective, a horse that is the fastest Timeform US late pace rating. We're going to kick things off with a very likable New York bred. The number 1, Doc Sullivan, has never been off the board for 9 lifetime tries, including this effort in the Albany last time out for New York breds at Saratoga. It was not a big field. He's going to rally for second behind the favorite Pandagate, a horse he hasn't been able to get to in his last 2 starts. Doc Sullivan's a solid sort, picking up Jose Ortiz, and can work out a mid-pack trip behind a solid pace. He'll get a good race flow.
Yeah, he will. He's a quality horse too. I'm not sure that, you know, he's a graded stakes kind of horse, Dan. I'm a huge fan of his, though. And I still have some distance questions as far as Doc Sullivan goes, but I just like him as a horse overall. Do you disagree with me? I feel like when you go back and watch that Albany, Pandagate's a nice horse anyway. And he did sort of get the jump on Doc Sullivan by going around and sort of taking the wide run there. I thought Castellano rode Doc Sullivan perfectly. He stayed in around the turn. He got the split in the stretch. All he could do was chase at the end. I mean, you could argue that Pandagate got the jump on him, but I thought this horse got a perfect trip.
No, I argue with you. I think the trip was there, and I just think right now Pandagate's a better horse than Doc Sullivan, and Doc Sullivan is going to have to step it up against these graded stakes quality horses, but he's a consistent runner, and he's got a few figs on the go back. Seize the Gray got really good during the early spring for Mr. Lucas, winning the Pat Day Mile, wiring them in the Preakness, and listen, he's in against Fierceness and Dornock in the against Dornock and Mindframe in the Belmont. He's in against Fierceness in Sierra Leone in the Jim Dandy. He's getting immense class relief in here, and he might be on the lead.
Yeah, I feel like don't they have to go back to aggressive tactics here, Dan? I mean, it seemed pretty clear in the Jim Dandy last time that they were intent on raiding him, and just, you know, take a look and see what would happen with that running style. And he, at the end of the day, he just didn't run that well in there. He got a perfectly clean trip, and he wasn't good enough. I actually felt like his Belmont doesn't look great on paper. I thought he ran fine in that race. And I feel like they'll go back to being aggressive with him in here. And again, it's just big class relief for this horse, whose last 2 starts, he was just in a little bit over his head.
Lonesome Boy is the number 3, and he's going to stretch out in his second start of the form cycle. I'm assuming the connections used his most recent race, a 6.5 furlong sprint, as a prep for this. He just couldn't get close to the winner that day, who we'll see in the Gallant Bob at Parx earlier in the afternoon. That horse blazed the trail and won in gate-to-wire fashion. Lonesome Boy stretches out. He could be part of the pace. He also is in very tough from a class perspective.
He's just got an awful lot to prove in a race like this one. I mean, he's never run a race now through 13 lifetime starts. He hasn't run one that's fast enough to make him competitive with these horses. He's got to improve by quite a bit.
Here's a lightly raced, well-bred horse trained by Bill Mott. The number 4 Time Out is a Claiborne homebred coming off a runner-up effort against some solid older horses. Let's watch that race at Saratoga, going this 1.1 miles distance. It's an open first level allowance, Mike, and Time Out set settled off the pace, came with a nice run to finish second. He's going to get some pace to attack in this spot, and a mile and an eighth is no problem. To me, this guy is still growing and learning and is all upside. Maybe Saturday's the day for the breakout.
Yeah, I'll agree with all that stuff. The only thing that maybe I would quibble with is I know this is an older horse that he's running second to there, Dan, and it was also an older Flying P horse. And if you followed the Saratoga meet, you know that all they did was win upstate for some reason. So maybe that's enough. He's going to have pace in here, but he had pace in that race that we just watched. That pace was fast. He had a clean trip off it. He just wasn't quite good enough. But I agree with you. I think he could move forward.
Protective, the number 5, was treated like a really nice horse by Rapoli Stables and Todd Pletcher earlier this year. They ran him in the Wood Memorial as a third-time maiden. He ran third. They ran him in the Peter Pan as a fourth-time maiden. He ran third. They ran him in the Belmont Stakes as a maiden. That didn't work out. It took him a while to graduate, but they found the right spot last time out. This race going a mile and a quarter, an off-turf race that only featured 4 horses, and Protective was 1-20 for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. Once this race came off the turf, it was almost like he couldn't lose. And it's still, for considering the price that he was and the races he was entering this field off of, it's not the most impressive win in the world, Dan, but he does get the job done. I was on him a little bit early on because I felt like, they ran him in the wrong races, it seemed like, and he had actually run pretty well in some of those graded stakes races without winning. Man, I wasn't taken by that most performance race, though. And I was also a little turned off. They talked to Pletcher after that race. They wanted to run him on. He wasn't main track only in there. He was entered for turf. Pletcher wanted to run him on turf. And I think Pletcher, even after the race, said, feels like this horse's future is going to be on the grass.
And Just Step On It is the number 6. As Mike mentioned in the pace projector segment, he could be part of the early pace. He was a gate to wire winner at Parx 3 starts back when dangled for a $75,000 claiming option. Tired 4th in the Haskell against some really nice horses. And then he ran this race, the Smarty Jones, last time out. This race, he had everything his own way. They went 25 for the first quarter, 48-4 for the half. And he's just going to get beat by a horse that might be slightly better. And that is Gould's Gold from the Kenny McPeak barn. All in all, a good effort, but he had a really good trip from up close to the pace.
Yeah, he did. Gould's Gold let him have the early lead around the first turn, then came up to his outside and sort of made him race the last 5/16 or so. And, Just Step On It ran perfectly fine in that race, but he wasn't good enough, and he didn't have a real excuse either. Paired up by our tops in his last 2 starts, so he's in good form right now. He's probably got to run the race of his life to win here.
The number 7 is Dragoon Guard, going out for Brad Cox, a Juddmonte homebred by Arrogate. He's won his last 4 races, including this effort in the West Virginia Derby. His last 3 wins have come in gate-to-wire fashion. In the West Virginia Derby, Florent Giroux took the bull by the horns out of the gate. He goes right to the front. He's just better than these horses. 2 starts back in the Indiana Derby, same situation, geared down late, beating Stronghold, who's also in this field, but he might have to face more pace this time.
It'll be interesting to see how he handles that, because I do think this pace is going to be a little bit more competitive. It's not like he's been on slow paces in his races, Dan. I mean, this horse has plenty of speed. He moves right along, right up front in his races. And the thing that's most impressive about him is he stays very strongly in his races to the end. So I don't know. I think he's a good horse. There's probably a different pace scenario coming up for him in here. I think they're going to make him work a lot harder, and it'll be interesting to see how he handles it, because this horse is clearly talented.
Unmatched Wisdom won his first 3 starts, all route races, 2 at a mile and an eighth, and looked very good doing so, including a gate-to-wire gambit in the Curlin 2 starts back, where he just went to the lead and was never threatened as the 2-5 favorite. They tested him in the Travers. We expected to see some early speed, and he got bounced around a bit coming out of the gate, but then just seemed a little bit sluggish.
Yeah, and he a little bit under a pull there in the backstretch, like maybe he wasn't that comfortable behind horses. But, let's be honest, at the end of the day, he was terrible in the Travers. He did not run well in that race. His Curlin, I thought, was fine, but with a really easy trip I thought he had in that race. To me, he's a tough call in here, Dan. I feel like the 8-1 morning line is way too big a price. And I'm not sitting here suggesting that I'm dying to bet Unmatched Wisdom, but at 8-1, I think he's a very fair price. I personally don't like him enough to want to bet him in here. But there's a chance that he's as good as anybody in this field.
Who's the King? The number 9's a horse that could show a little bit of early speed for Saffie Joseph. Didn't Saffie train Math Wizard at a giant price to win the Pennsylvania Derby a few years ago? Who's the King didn't run very well last time out in a $50,000 starter allowance, but he didn't settle in that race. Again, in a race like this, if he goes out guns blazing, he could get cooked.
Yeah, he could. Maybe he doesn't have the right running style for this either. And obviously, he is way up in class for this race, too. And ultimately, Dan, they ran this horse, twice at Saratoga. I felt like Safi got this horse really good off the claim, and they ran him twice at Saratoga, and I thought he was bad in both of those races.
Uncle Heavy goes out for Butch Reed. He's Parx based. The locals are going to be rooting for this guy who won the Withers over a wet track going 1 1/8 miles in his 3-year-old debut. And it just seemed like he's playing catch up since then. He had to miss some time due to a quarantine issue. They ran him in the wood from post position 12. He made a brief mood and didn't fire. The Preakness didn't run well at all. The Ohio Derby didn't run well at all. And then last time out in the Smarty Jones, if you want to make the excuse, okay, the pace was slow, fine, but I expected a little bit more from him, and he just didn't fire his best shot. So now he's got a lot to prove.
Yeah, I wanted to see him, maybe gain a little bit more ground in that last one. I mean, I do appreciate that it feels like Butch Reed after I'm with you, the Preakness and the Ohio Derby, they were bad. And I appreciate that they freshened him up a little and gave him a little bit of time off. And he did run better last time, but all in all, that was a good trip, Dan, and just couldn't make up any ground. And this is a tougher field than that one.
Strong hold, and number 11 goes out for Phil D'Amato. It's a tough outside post position, but this is a colt that's shown a little bit of quality in his career. I know this year's Santa Anita Derby was not the strongest in the world, but he was game to win. And I think in the Kentucky Derby, he showed that he could run a little bit. I don't think that running line is indicative of his performance because he made a move into that fast pace before tiring. And then last time out in the Indiana Derby, a race where Dragoon Guard controlled the pace, he was sort of down inside and ended up finishing okay for second. This is a horse I think that can take back off the pace and benefit if Dragoon Guard gets pushed this time.
Yeah, I agree. I love his running style. Post 11 might not be a bargain, but he can just come out of there running, get forward, and sort of work his way over towards the inside because he doesn't need to be on the lead, and there should be pace in front of him. And I'm with you on his Indiana Derby last time. I mean, lost a little position, too, into that first turn. It felt like they wanted to be up close, and once Dragoon Guard dropped in front of him, he sort of got shuffled back a little bit on the first turn. Then he moved up again. I thought that performance was perfectly fine, and I expect this horse to move forward in this race, second off that little short layoff.
Before we take a look at our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for the Grade 1 Pennsylvania Derby, our Saturday race of the day. Mike, you and I both like Stronghold.
Yeah, I'm going to take him in here, Dan. I think this is a good spot for this horse. And again, I just feel like he could move forward in this race and maybe get to Dragoon, make it a little closer with Dragoon Guard this time. I put Dragoon Guard second, although he's the kind of horse at sub 2-1 odds. I'd be trying to beat him in here. This is not an easy race for him.
Really curious to see how this pace pans out. I do think Seize the Gray on the class drop might be the speed of the speed, and we'll see how far he takes him. But like you, Mike, I think there's better to come from Stronghold. I hope he drifts a little bit off that 5-2 morning line. 11-7, 2 and 8 for Mike. 11-2, 1 and 4 for me in the Grade 1 Pennsylvania Derby, your Saturday race of the day. It's a huge Saturday of racing at Parx, including Torpedo Anna and the Cotillion. Good luck.
Hey friends, you look like you're in need of a winner. If you enjoyed the great content right here, just click and subscribe right here and enjoy the great DRF.com race of the days, the phenomenal stakes previews, and so much more. Many of that content featuring me and my exceptional selections. Trust me, you won't regret it.